Hello, thanks for tuning in again. It's June 5th, 2025, and today's topic, by the way, I'm Joe Simhart, if you don't know. Today's topic is taken from notes I've been writing down, like a long, tortured essay called Cult of a One-Eyed Jack. I'm not going to get into the title now, but part of my essay states, religion is more aligned with psychology than cosmology. We can say cults are aligned more with psychology than cosmology as well. But the reason I wrote that is because I've been reading a fascinating book, or rereading it, and it's called The Day Without Yesterday. And so I'll read from my note here. I reread The Day Without Yesterday, Lemaitre, Einstein, and the Birth of Modern Cosmology by John Farrell, written in 2005. This is one of my favorite books, wherein we find one of the finest mathematical minds of the 20th century, a Catholic priest, making perhaps the most succinct statement about the distinction between real science and the purpose of religion. And this is a quote from someone who was interviewing Lemaitre, Father Lemaitre, in the book. His name is Paul Dirac. And he says, when I was talking with Lemaitre about this subject and feeling stimulated by the grandeur of the picture that he has given us, I told him that I thought cosmology was the branch of science that lies closest to religion. However, Lemaitre did not agree with me. After thinking it over, he suggested psychology as lying closer to religion. And that comes from the book, The Scientific Works of Georges Lemaitre. So Lemaitre lived from 1894 to 1966. And early in his career, he developed mathematical insight into what later became called the singularity of the Big Bang and the event horizon of black holes. He's kind of an unsung genius, and the fact that he was a priest got him into some trouble with his colleagues because they thought he had some bias, trying to force a theory into the idea of a Big Bang or creation out of nothing. That was not what he was trying to do, and he definitely distanced himself from any of that religious talk about his science. In fact, he had a interaction with Pope Pius XII, and I'll read this to you. After Lemaitre became famous for his singularity theory that influenced Einstein's concepts, as well as others like the uncertainty principle, and anyway, Georges Ganot, for instance, elaborated on Lemaitre's ideas about the Big Bang. So Pope Pius XII, in a 1951 speech, had just stepped over the line, publicly expressing the view that Lemaitre's expanding dynamic model of the universe, his primeval atom theory, offered virtual proof that the creation story in the book of Genesis was now substantiated by science. Lemaitre was livid, though dignified in his response. Later in a private meeting, he corrected the Pope, who subsequently, after 1951, backed away from his stupid pronouncement. But the damage had been done. The meme went viral that science or a scientist had proved that the Big Bang was evidence of the Creator making the world out of nothing. So there's such an urge among religious people to have proof about the truth that they often cross over from psychology, which is basically what religion is. It's a form of psychological response to us being in the world. And the word psychology comes from psyche, and the psyche is the soul. And so what we think of as the soul is the combination of the life that we think is in us, and how that lives outside of us, kind of like a vital force, and that we sometimes call God. All of that is psychological speculation, and it can be valuable. Someone like Wittgenstein said that he wouldn't dismiss religion, even though it didn't make sense from a scientific point of view, because religion and ethics and morals are more important than what science gives us. that's kind of the life glue that keeps the human race going, and we have to value it in a different way and manage it in a different way than we do science. But nevertheless, we want to remain true to the best principles that any of those domains offers us. So I thought this distinction by Lemaitre was just very profound, and him being a Catholic priest who lived and died a priest in good standing, and understood his religion and the value of his religion, and believed in the value of his religion, knew the distinction between his science and his religious beliefs, and he maintained that throughout his life. He was a genius in both regards. So I just thought I would bring that up because there's this crazy stuff that's been going on, and I brought this up before, mixing science with religion. The whole New Thought movement claiming that it's religious science. Ron Hubbard with Scientology claiming that he has concrete proof of what he's doing through his so-called experiments. People using titles like quantum healing and other kinds of bullshit ideas that don't really make any sense when you really look deeply into that sort of thing. In other words, people that use that kind of language are using thought-terminating cliches, trying to sound smart, and they don't have the insight and the genius of a Father Georges Lemaitre into what real science is and real religion and spirituality should be, which is in the realm of human psychology, or what you might call the domain of the soul. And but let me just show you a little bit about Lemaitre. This is what he looked like. Here he is with Einstein in the 1930s, discussing his singularity theory at a conference. He also was quite involved with later ideas of the development of the singularity theory, and other scientists expanded on it. For instance, George Gamow, Gamow, was able to show through his mathematics and physics that Lemaitre was somewhat wrong, and even though he was correct about a lot of things, but it wasn't a cold state that began the primeval atom. It had to be a hot state. And so one scientist can lead to another in terms of their verification of their theories, and this is how science works. Lemaitre was very humble about this. He accepted correction, but nevertheless, as it says in this book, his ideas about the cosmological constant, or lambda, as Einstein first proposed, and Einstein at one time thought it was one of his dumbest ideas. Lemaitre rescued it. Instead of having it at the beginning of the theory, he put it at the end and showed that you need some kind of a constant in order for the dynamism to exist in the pulsing of the universe, whether it's a big bang or a big pulse or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to finish by just reading this because I think it's cool. The cosmological constant, also known as the lambda term, or it looks like an A without a line in it, which Einstein used to maintain a static equilibrium in his initial cosmological solution to the general relativity theory and his field equations in 1917. Without the term, he realized the spherical model of the universe would collapse on itself like a balloon losing all of its air. Although he introduced the term on the left side of his field equation, essentially to keep the balloon inflated or prop up the geometry of space-time, Lemaitre later reinterpreted lambda as a measure of negative pressure, which he incorporated on the right side of the equations, dealing with stress energy and its effect on the curvature of space-time. The constant has been understood in these terms ever since. So his ideas are still with us. You may have not heard of them, but I think just using this man as an example, you can begin to distinguish in an ethical and honest and truthful way the distinction between science and religion. They are not in the same domain. Religion, cult, or whatever is part of psychology or social psychology. Science is about a whole other way of examining the world through our senses and our tools and our theories in our mathematics and physics. It doesn't have to apply to religion, and we don't need quantum consciousness as part of our language. Try not to be stupid by using those terms. All right, so I'll leave it at that. I think you should try to maybe take a look at A Day Without Yesterday or some synopsis of it, and I think it can inform you quite a bit about what I'm talking about today, that religion is really psychology. Thank you.